Hello everybody, welcome to the next episode of our How to Win Arkham Horror series, where we're going to be talking about understanding resource engines. We have talked about tempo, we have talked about value, we've talked about deck building, so now we're going to talk about the things you can do with your cards to take advantage of the situation. So Travis, I'm going to ask you, what is a resource engine?
So a resource engine is basically something that breaks down. Right? You're not gonna go to the slide for it.
Sure, I can go for the slide for it.
I thought this the slide was for.
Oh, I thought you were.
Yeah. So it doesn't need to be a strict loop. It doesn't need to be like an infinite engine, infinite resource transfer from one thing to another. Like you're always gonna lose something in the equation. But generally, it is taking one resource and turning it into another, but then that resource turns into something else, and then that original cost is potentially, like, it's either trivial, something that you don't care about, or something that is inconsequential.
Yeah.
It's the closest thing that you can get to making something from nothing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, to kind of put it in terms that you might have heard before when it comes to card games, resource engines take advantage of card synergies or card combos to get the most gain possible for the player using them. As Travis said, they don't necessarily need to go infinite, which is a term for when you can do it infinitely. But like, as long as you're gaining some sort of advantage from it, that essentially is kind of a resource engine. To go even further, this was a great thing that Travis said in the notes, which I think he also just said here, but to put it in text for you guys. A resource engine breaks down the typical equation of cost into an effect by introducing another effect that either trivializes or minimizes the cost, or it's a symbiotic relationship between three or more resource exchanges.
Yeah, this is what I was trying to say without reading it off the slide.
Yeah. It is really elegant, and I do look good because I was able to read it off the slide. But essentially, you are putting a resource into a card or an action, and then you are getting stuff out of it while also beating the game, right? Like you're not just doing it for fun, you're doing it also to win, right? Like a resource engine that just does nothing isn't going to be as successful as, like, they probably do exist, right? But we're talking about the ones that can help you win the game.
Yeah.
We have some examples to go through here that we're going to break down in detail. And according to Travis, for when mine comes up, I do have all of my cheat sheets ready. Travis, before I show the description for what this one does, while the cards are on the screen, what is this resource engine and what is it trying to do?
So basically, this is Carolyn being able to use the meat cleaver an infinite amount of times while also getting a lot of resources. You got Pete Sylvester. He can heal one horror at the end of each turn. He also gives you a brain float, which is irrelevant to this transaction, but very good. Carolyn, when one of your card effects heals horror from an investigator or ally asset, that the healed cards control against one resource. So if you somehow had a way to have Pete Sylvester take damage or brain damage every turn, sanity damage, then you could heal it at the end of the turn, and you get a resource for it, just for free, just for half it. Meat Cleaver lets you take a brain damage to have the attack deal +1 damage. And while Carolyn's base fight isn't like super great, you can load her up with the brain damage, and then to get it low enough to give you +2 fight up to 4, and then you just put the horror on Pete, and then you get an extra damage for your attack, and then at the end of the turn, Pete heals, and you get the money.
Yeah. So that's just the summary.
That's pretty wild.
Yeah, that's just the summary for it there. But yeah, essentially, this is kind of like what we're talking about when it comes to this resource engine. You are able to take advantage of 3 different cards. They are synergizing together to benefit you immensely. As Travis said, Carolyn's attack isn't great, but if you can get her sanity low enough, Pete Sylvester is a great way to ensure she doesn't die and get the full advantage from Meat Cleaver. But I mean, like with this Carolyn support, you're probably here just killing the small things and getting up to 3 and then maybe a little bit more from another little boost or something else you might have, like an asset that you can also spend resources in that you get from Carolyn's ability. Is a great way to potentially kill some small monsters that might show up and not actually lose money or sanity as it's happening. Seems pretty sweet.
Yeah, like Karen does actually get a bunch of blue options to increase her punch because she is a guardian.
Because she is a guardian.
Just can't be weapons. So
all right.
This is the classic.
Yeah, this one is a classic. Travis, I can let you take this one again.
Okay. I played with this one a long time ago, and it was very good before these cards got changed. But Rex, when you succeed a test by 2 or more while investigating, you get 1 extra clue. You know what gives you 2 book? Higher education. For 1 resource. As long as you have 5 cards in hand, you can get +2 book for a skill test. Mm-hmm. So you just have to basically pass the test normally, and then you get a free clue. But, oh no, how am I I'll run out of resources eventually. If only there was a card that gave me a resource every time I investigate. Enter Dr. Christopher here. He'll do that exactly. Also, I'll give you another book to make it more likely to succeed. So you're basically investigating by 5 every test, and if you succeed, you get an extra clue.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah. So like right here for 1 resource, but you get the resource back. You're investigating like at 7. Like that's killer, right? Like to break this down with our earlier equation we discussed, like the end result is that we're discovering an extra clue every time we investigate. That's what we want to do. Yeah.
And then so we need to find a way to get our skill test 2 higher than what it needs to be. Higher education does that, but again, it costs us a resource. So then we find another card that will give us a resource for investigations. It's not very often that cards slot together perfectly like this. Mm-hmm. Usually you have to pay something into it, but that's a big part of it is just looking for something that the cost doesn't have to be 0. It just has to be small enough to be negligible.
Yeah. And I think as well as with these examples, we're not trying to say hey, these are super secret tech, right? These are things that even while you're just starting, you might have found, right? And I think what Travis is saying, the whole point to understanding a resource engine is to look for effects and then how I can benefit the most from it while also maybe getting things back. So exactly this with Rex Murphy. I want to succeed by 2. Higher education increases it by 2, but it costs a resource. Hey, Dr. Milan Christopher gives me money back when I investigate, so I'm essentially paying nothing to grab an extra clue whenever I investigate. That's also pretty sweet.
Yeah, the thought process is more important than the end result here.
Yeah. Okay, I have my notes.
That's good, because I don't understand how this one works, so you get to explain it to me.
Oh, man. This one's sick.
Yeah, so this is a pretty broken sort of combo with Silas Marsh. Right, we're going to ignore everything on Silas except for his star effect, which is +0. You may commit a skill card from your discard pile to this test. After this test ends, return that skill to your hand instead of discarding it. So, when you begin a skill test, I have the skill test breakdowns somewhere on here. I had it open. Here we go. Oh my god, everything's broken. I'll get there though. So essentially the goal of this resource engine is to play Eucatastrophe over and over and over and over again. And the effect's pretty sweet. So you play it fast. When you reveal a skill token that would reduce your skill value to 0 during a skill test, this includes the auto fail, as that's the only time you can play it. You get to cancel that token and treat it as a blessed token instead. So going back to Silas's blessed
anymore.
Sorry, Travis?
And it's not blessed anymore. You can't call it that. There's an actual
That's right. It's an Elder Sign, the Elder Sign token. Thank you, Travis. I'm trying to internalize that, so I do appreciate it. So with the Elder Sign token, I get to commit a skill card from my discard pile. Like, say, for example, this Resourceful that is in my discard, which is then committed to a test. You're probably going to succeed this test at the +1 that you are now at. That is the goal with this Eucatastrophe combo, which you can then choose the Eucatastrophe in your discard pile with Resourceful to put the Eucatastrophe back into your hand. The Resourceful then goes back into your hand because of your Elder Sign ability, which you can then commit to another test to get something back, which then goes back into your graveyard, and then your Eucatastrophe combo is ready to go again. This happens because in the skill test timing in step 3, you reveal the Chaos token, and that's when Eucatastrophe is played. When an event is played, as soon as it is done resolving, it goes into your discard pile, which means as soon as the Resourceful is committed to your test, which is going to be during step 3 of the skill test time, or like basically before, like as soon as the Eucatastrophe is resolved. So then by the time when it gets to step 7 or step 8, I'm not exactly sure when this Resourceful would trigger. The Resourceful is able to see the Eucatastrophe in your discard pile, which allows you to put it into your hand, which is pretty sick. And then the Resourceful also comes back with it.
Yeah, and because you get an extra use out of the Resourceful, if the card you get back with your Resourceful is some sort of red card, like possibly Take Heart, that allows you to pay the 2 resources for the Eucatastrophe, you get to increase the loop even further.
Oh, baby.
Yeah. One thing I've noticed about this is that there's a lot of, we have 2 more examples coming up, and there's a lot of, Survivor has a lot of these things. They just have
It's like discard recursion is important.
Yes, exactly.
And like vaguely broken.
Let's get to this next one, which it took me, because I had a bunch of notes from when Travis and I made this. This one took me a little bit to fully see the power or what this loop was capable of, but it's honestly pretty sick, and I like it. And this one actually did not, I haven't followed through with this one or seen this one in my own head take shape. So, Travis, why don't you...
Bryn, would you like to explain this one? Or you want me to do it?
You go for it.
Okay. So, this one actually kind of involves 2 newspapers. It can be done less effectively with one, but basically, you got Pete. He can discard a card from his hand to Ray Duke, which is an asset. It's Duke, though, let's be honest. Duke investigates with 4 book, and you can move, which is also relevant. You just investigate with 4 book, which is good. You have your scavenging in play. You have your newspaper in your hand, actually. And then you investigate with Duke. You commit the newspaper. And then, again, this is the whole idea that by getting +2 to a test, you just have to succeed at it. And, like, you can kind of ignore the 2 as paying for whatever cost, whatever effect triggers by succeeding by 2. So you can use your scavenging to get back a different item. You can either use to ready Duke through Pete's ability, or if it has book icons on it, like another newspaper, then you can just have +2 book for Duke all the time. It's like you have 6 base book.
So with my slide that I've come up here, mine's actually also a little bit different than... it's like the same kind of concept, but it also has like a little bit of a different thing that this resource engine also provides.
There's a lot of permutations with scavenging and Duke.
Yeah, exactly. But like, so with my notes, let's not forget, like what Travis has said is it's like a very strong loop to go with this. But even with 1 newspaper, so like you can use Duke to investigate a location, get +2 book from newspaper, either committed from your hand, or if, say for example, late in the game, you just use Duke's move and investigate to move to a location, investigate a location without clues, with your newspaper if you have no clues as well, to grab something from your graveyard with scavenging, which you can then use to ready Duke. Like, there's just a lot you can do with this recursion here. As Travis says, Duke and scavenging does a lot of nice, juicy things.
Yeah. One thing worth noting here is you cannot commit newspaper to a test and then use the scavenging to get the same newspaper back.
Yes, because...
if you want to loop them, you have to have 2 copies of it, 1 your hand, 1 your discard. Already.
Yes, yeah.
Or a different asset, a different item that discards.
Bryn, do you want this one, or should I take this one?
Sure.
It's more red
so
cards,
this
there's
one
no
we've
green
got-
cards here.
Yeah, I figured that. So with Drawing Fin, we can, as a reaction effect, when we perform a skill test, exhaust it to increase the difficulty by 2. Then we gain 2 resources or draw a card. So normally that's pretty bad because we're kind of punting away an action to get about what it's worth. However, if we have track shoes, when we move into a location, we just get to test foot for free. It doesn't matter if we pass or not. We just get to do the thing and grab some easy money
Yeah, that's sick.
or cards.
This is
you have 2 drawing pins.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yes,
This is kind of
indeed.
like this is just like drawing thin is a broken card. Like it's just like there's like, but this is like such a way to get such value out of it because you can use it every turn and, as Bryn said, not lose an action. Like that's sick. Like that's awesome.
It is worth noting that if you succeed the track shoes test, you have to move,
Yeah.
which was relevant for me one time. But like if you have 2 drawing thins, you're testing against foot 7. Like
Yeah. Even if you just if you have like 1 drawing thin and like maybe a rabbit's foot or other effects that care about you failing tests,
oh yeah, it's
you
just
can
gravy.
get a whole lot of value.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this effect is also something that we're going to cover in greater detail in an upcoming video in the series, which is cost mitigation. So essentially exactly that. Like there is a cost. The cost is an action. But to get the advantage of drawing thin, you have to spend an action. Track shoes means you don't have to spend that action to get the benefit from drawing thin. So you essentially mitigated the cost that drawing thin is supposed to impose on the player who wants to take advantage of it. As I said, in our next episode, we will further discuss cost mitigation and many other things. But what we want to know is, are there any other concepts that you want us to discuss in this series? Kind of dive in at like the mechanics, the synergies, and other aspects of the cards. Please let us know in the comments below. Is there anything you guys want to add to this resource engine thing before I say goodbye to all of our lovely viewers at home?
No.
Sick. See you later, guys. Thanks for watching. If this is your first time on our channel, consider subscribing and liking the video. And as always, please comment. I love reading your guys' comments. Both Travis and I do respond to them, and we like reading them, so keep them coming. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a good one. And as always, GG's.